ये बोलिए, जल्दी से बोलिए फिर।
Sir, if a patient comes with +1 proteinuria on urine DR, should we go for first urine CS, then treat her, and then we do her repeat the urine DR, or we should straight away go for the urine CS, and along with that we should do protein to creatinine ratio directly? We ask from this the patient.
आपका
examiner.
मुख्तसरन ये समझाऊं कि एक पेशेंट को प्रोटीनूरिया है प्लस माइनस, मतलब माइनस जो पक्का प्रोटीनूरिया 1+1+2+3 वो तो प्रोटीनूरिया है, उसकी जो भी मैनेजमेंट आप करेंगी। लेकिन जहाँ पे शक हो आप कहिए जी मैं इसको रिपीट करूंगी एग्जामिनेशन पे, या वो कंफर्म हो जाएगा प्लस हो जाएगा या वो माइनस हो जाएगा, क्योंकि कंटेमिनेशन इज वन ऑफ द फैक्टर्स जो इस तरह के यूरिन के प्लस माइनस में आती है कि वो आई मेक श्योर दैट इट मिड स्ट्रीम स्पेसिमेन और क्लीन रिसेप्टिकल था, और उसमें ये मतलब एक रिकन्फर्म समरी इज कि अगर वो प्लस माइनस है कि जी मैं इसको रीचेक करूंगी कि ये है कि नहीं है, बस। वो क्या है, क्यों कहो जी कंटेमिनेशन भी हो सकता है, प्रॉपर कलेक्शन ऑफ यूरिन नहीं हुई, और इट इज नॉट मिड स्ट्रीम स्पेसिमेन, क्योंकि अर्ली स्पेसिमेन जो होता है तो उसमें एक्सटर्नल यूरिथ्रल मेट्रिक्स के साथ वजाइनल सिक्रीशंस भी लगी होती हैं, सो वो साथ आ जाती हैं, तभी मिड स्ट्रीम स्पेसिमेन लिया जाता है ताकि उसमें वो कंटेमिनेशन ना हो। चलिए, मेरा ख्याल हम 5 मिनट ऊपर हो गए और शुरू करते हैं। पहले क्या नाम था ये आपका?
हीरा।
हाँ जी,
हीरा सर।
हीरा।
जी सर।
हीरा एरम। Okay, let's have your case today, please.
ठीक है सर। Mrs. Nasra Asif, 30 years of age, having no formal education, resident of Samnabad, 30-minute distance from hospital. She is married for 7 years. This is first cousin marriage of both partner. Her blood group is O positive. She is gravida 7, para 3, with 3 miscarriage, with 1 alive issue, previous 2 lower segment cesarean section. Her LMP is 2nd September 2020, with regular menstrual cycle, which makes her gestation 26 weeks and 2 days, and expected date of delivery 9 June 2021. She admitted through OPD for evaluation of increased amount of fluid around the baby and body cavities of fetus. My patient current pregnancy was spontaneous conception. Urine for pregnancy test was not done. She booked herself at 5th month of gestation. However, she did not give history of flu, fever, rash, sore throat, and folic acid intake during first trimester. Fetal movements felt on 5th month of gestation. Her routine obstetrical scan done on 5th month, which showed single normal alive fetus. Her baseline investigations and blood pressure was normal at that time. No history of headache, blurring of vision, epigastric pain, increased urination, hunger, thirst up till now. She did not take any hematinics throughout her pregnancy. 2 weeks before, she gave history of IV iron infusion on hemoglobin level of 8 gram per deciliter without typing of anemia and without any transfusion reaction. However, her diet is deficient in meat, milk, poultry, and green leafy vegetables. She drinks tap water. History of overcooked food intake. No history of indigestion, excessive vomiting, loose motion, blood in urine, black stools, hemorrhoids, stool, passage of worms in stools, perianal itching, bruises, prolonged bleeding from minor cuts, bleeding and clotting disorders in the family. Her second scan was done 1 week before, and she was told increased liquor around her baby and increased fluid in the fetal body cavities, and was referred to Civil Hospital, Faisalabad. After admission to this hospital, her detailed anatomy scan was done, and the same abnormalities told to my patient. She felt discomfort during walking, but no history of indigestion, dyspepsia, urinary and bowel problems, leg swellings, varicose veins, and no history of any uterine and adnexal mass on previous ultrasound. Her oral glucose tolerance test was also done 3 days before, which was normal according to her. Her blood pressure was checked 2 times a day, which is also normal. However, my patient did not give history of heat and cold intolerance, palpitation, sleep problems, photosensitivity, joints pain, and any drugs intake, placental abnormalities, severe anemia, cardiac problems, chronic liver disease. She was counseled regarding the termination of pregnancy, but not counseled regarding the cause of her problem. My patient is a Gravida 7 para 3 with 3 miscarriage with 1 alive issue, 1 female of 2 year. Previous 2 lower segment cesarean section. Her first and second pregnancy was spontaneous conception 6.5 years and 6 years ago, confirmed on urine for pregnancy test. History of missed miscarriage in 3rd month in both pregnancies. Ended up in spontaneous miscarriage, followed by evacuation of retained product of conception in Civil Hospital, Faisalabad. No history of antenatal baseline investigations in both pregnancies. Her blood pressure remained normal during antenatal intrapartum period. Third was also spontaneous conception 5 years ago, confirmed on urine for pregnancy test. She booked at 5th month of gestation, and 5th month scan shows complete molar pregnancy. Ended up suction and evacuation in civil hospital under general anesthesia. History of histopathological confirmation of complete mole, and she was discharged from the follow-up after 2 normal blood reports. Fourth was also spontaneous conception, booked pregnancy 4 years ago. Her antenatal intrapartum period remained uneventful. That was term pregnancy, history of spontaneous onset of labor, ended up in vaginal delivery in Civil Hospital, Faisalabad. Outcome was female of average weight with no gross anomaly, but history of delay cry with and poor Apgar score, and that baby was died after 1 hour. Fifth was also spontaneous conception, booked pregnancy 3 years ago. Her antenatal period remained uneventful. That was term pregnancy. Ended up elective lower segment cesarean section in Social Security due to breech presentation. Outcome was male baby of weight 3.5 kg with cleft palate, and remained admitted in NICU for 13 days and was died due to aspiration of milk. Sixth was spontaneous conception, booked pregnancy 2.5 years ago. Her antenatal period remained uneventful. That was term pregnancy, ended up in elective lower segment cesarean section due to patient wish at Social Security Hospital, Faisalabad. Outcome was a live and healthy female baby of average weight, breastfed and vaccinated. Her age of menarche is 13 years, menstrual cycle 5/30, regular with average blood flow, no history of intermenstrual bleeding, dysmenorrhea, dyspareunia, and postcoital bleeding. Pap smear never be taken. Couple practices barrier method of contraception before this period, before this pregnancy. She has previous 2 lower segment cesarean section. Her father is diabetic, no family history of hypertension, asthma, thyroid, and other chronic illness, congenital abnormalities, and any hereditary problems. She is non-smoker, non-addict, and with appropriate diet and sleep with normal bowel and bladder habits. She herself only a source of income and shopkeeper with monthly income of 10,000 per month. Fulfilling her basic life necessities very difficulty. A pale-looking young lady of weight 65 kg.
Dr. Hira, please stop here. Very good history. Must compliment you for taking such a complicated but focused history. Yeah, credit to you for that. Then second thing is, which is important for all of you, it's such a complicated, long history. Every pregnancy had different story. And it has still taken only 5 minutes for Dr. Hira to take the history. So even if you get a complicated case like this, don't rush, don't omit. Dr. Hira gave us family history, past obstetrical history, present history, all histories were taken. And relevant points were highlighted. They were highlighted. So that's why I complimented her. It's a good history. Now, if you get a patient like this, there is every possibility that instead of discussing excessive fluid around the baby and in various parts of the body of the baby, instead of that, now look here. In one part of the history is patient had intravenous iron. And Dr. Hira did say without confirming type of anemia. So you may be taken into that area. If you had that patient, how will you make a diagnosis of anemia and how will you treat? Is it necessary to give intravenous iron, or we could give oral iron as well? All that discussion could be around anemia during pregnancy. Second possibility, of course, is that she had termination of pregnancy. And third is that molar pregnancy. She had more, and it was a section GNC followed up for, she mentioned 2 tests only, but it means there were 2 tests. Follow-up was good enough for beta HCG to come down. Then another patient is Apgar score was very poor, and up within an hour the baby died. And last was cleft palate, and for 14 days the baby was in ICU and eventually died. So anything out of this can be picked up. I'm telling you this, if you have a history, be prepared for all those. Don't focus only on hard drops. This is also possible, although small possibility, but a possibility that high drops will never be discussed with you, and it will be anemia during pregnancy, it will be termination of pregnancy, and family history of diabetes, and molar pregnancy, a poor Apgar score, the reasons after normal delivery, and cleft palate, anomalous baby, or what could are the other possibilities of anomalies. So when you are taken the history, sit down, be prepared mentally to discuss any of these items. This is one. But today we'll discuss the main problem, that there is a patient who, she is O positive, but at 26 weeks, we have learned that there's excessive fluid inside the body of the fetus and around the fetus. And this is in spite of the fact that she is O positive. So we'll talk about high drops, vitalis, or high drops of the baby today.
Yes,
When we think of high drops or excessive anemia in the baby, we think of the first thing, which perhaps examiner would also think, and you will also think, is RH incompatibility, which in this case can't be because she is O positive. Anyway, I thought I'll give you flow chart first about RH negative patient and how you should think about the management of that patient. And then we'll talk about high drops and its management as well. So we're talking about RH negative patient.
yes,
Now, there can be 2 possibilities. Most likely that RH patient is primary gravida or had no past history of blood transfusion, mismatched transfusion, and she will not be sensitized. Or in other words, RH negative will have no antibodies in her body. And if that is the case, and also the past is, she may not be primary gravida, but past history of gravida 2, gravida 3, but nothing abnormal for those babies. It's possible. If she is not sensitized, then possible that the babies will not be affected. So after in RH negative patient, you will take obstetrical history and find out if any of her past pregnancies was affected or not. Now let's presume that it's not affected, or she is the first pregnancy. Then in RH negative patient, you will first thing do is, I suggest you keep writing down this flow chart. You will do husband's blood group. If he is RH negative, still no problem. Because RH negative husband, RH negative mother or the wife, then all the babies will be RH negative. So she will never have a problem during pregnancy. But if the husband is Rh positive, then next step is you will ask for genotyping of the husband. When you ask for genotyping, then there are two possibilities. Husband may be reported homozygous, that means capital D and capital D in the genes, or heterozygous, that means capital D and small d in his genes. If he's homozygous, capital D and capital D, all the babies will be Rh positive. It means all the pregnancies can carry the risk of sensitizing mother or having being affected by mother's antibodies. But if husband is heterozygous, then there's 50% chance the babies will be positive and 50% chance babies will be negative. So you will counsel your patient according to the blood group of the husband. What is the possibility of risks regarding Rh? After doing husband's test, I repeat, husband's blood group and then genotyping. Then we come back after completing that investigation of the husband that we test antibodies in the patient. There are two possibilities. One possibility is there are no antibodies. It means the patient is not sensitized. You will continue checking antibodies every 4 weeks. If there are no antibodies, no problem, then you will give as a prophylaxis anti-D injection to that patient at 28 weeks, another one at 36 weeks, and after delivery of the baby, you will do cord blood of the baby and accordingly proceed. I repeat, you do antibodies of the patient. If there are no antibodies, keep checking antibodies every 4 weeks. And at 28 weeks and 36 weeks as a prophylaxis anti-D injection. And then at the delivery of the baby, cord blood and its tests. Now, so there's nothing to worry if there are no antibodies. Now, the other possibility is there are antibodies. If there are antibodies in mother's blood, then you will ask for, next step is ask for what is the strength of those antibodies, or we call it titer of that antibody. If they are low titer, 1 in 4 or 1 in 8 maximum, still it is likely that baby will not be affected. So in that case, you will keep repeating antibodies every 2 weeks. If the titer goes up, then there's a risk, but if the titer doesn't go up, then there's no risk to the baby. So if the titer goes up, then there's a possibility that baby may be affected. Then you start monitoring the baby by doing middle cerebral artery pulse volume PVC, PVS, and start charting MCV and MCA, and is chart how much it shows the systolic pulse. If the pulse is high, they are labeled as A, B, C, D grades. The higher the MCA pulse, then the greater risk to the baby is likely to be affected. And if the baby is affected, then you think of doing chordocentesis. Whenever, at whatever stage it is affected, you do chordocentesis. Then on the baby's blood, you do various tests and find out the severity after taking baby's blood sample. The test, write down, the test you will do on baby's blood collected through chordocentesis is hemoglobin, is blood group, Barrett Coombs test, bilirubin, and proteins in the blood. Because in the affected baby, proteins go down and they are responsible for mostly edema or hair drops of the baby. And if possible, karyotyping of the baby. These are the tests done on the baby who is affected, and you have collected the blood by cordocentesis. If the baby is affected, I told you that MCA shows the A zone or B zone, high affected. Then the baby needs transfusion inside the uterus through cordocentesis. Every time you will transfuse 20 to 30 milliliters of blood, O negative blood or cross-matched blood. And if the need be, this intrauterine transfusion can be repeated every 2 weeks. And preferably you take the pregnancy up to 34 weeks or so, then deliver by cesarean section. And after the delivery, in such cases where the baby is affected, generally the delivery is by cesarean section between 34 and 36 weeks. When the baby is delivered, we take cord blood, and there are 4 tests which are done on cord blood: hemoglobin, bilirubin, baby's blood group, and direct Coombs test. These 4 tests, they tell you how severely the baby is affected. Then subsequently, I'll talk about the management of the affected baby. So I summarize the management of RH incompatibility. Just in a couple of minutes, the RH negative woman, when she comes to you, first thing is you will do husband's blood grouping and if necessary genotyping. Then if blood group of the husband is negative, then there is no problem. In the case of positive, homozygous, all babies will be positive. And in heterozygous, 50% babies chance of being positive or negative. Then next is you take patient's blood and do antibody tests. If there are no antibodies, nothing to worry. Nothing to worry. Only if during pregnancy there is bleeding, APH, or threatened abortion, they need at that time prophylaxis. Otherwise, if pregnancy continues at 28, 36 weeks, prophylaxis, deliver vaginally and cord blood. If the patient has on the other side antibodies present, then you find the teeter. If there is no teeter, you keep repeating that every 2 weeks. And if it remains low, nothing to worry. Then you deliver the baby at 37 weeks or so. If baby is affected, teeter is high. Then that high teeter needs monitoring of the baby. Baby, it is monitored by a Doppler test, MCA, middle cerebral artery pulsation. And they are labeled as in a graph A, B, C, D. A, B means severely affected, C, D means less affected. If the baby is severely affected, you do cordocentesis and you do various tests on that blood and give intrauterine transfusion. If need be, 20 to 30 cc every 2 weeks. Preferably carry the pregnancy to 34, 36 weeks and deliver by cesarean section and then take cord blood. Very briefly, this is RH pregnancy because the present patient is not RH negative. But I thought when it comes to high drops, we generally interlink that or link that with the RH negative. So that's why I prepared this flow chart for you people so that you remember all the time. RH negative, no antibodies, you'll do this. Antibodies, you'll do this and all that. Now we come to high drops. High drops is excessive fluid collection in various parts of the body. Fetus. Luckily, the incidence is very low. 1-2,000 babies. So if you're working in Faisalabad, the Light Hospital, maybe they are delivering 10,000 cases a year. So the risk is that they will see only maybe 4 or 5 patients in the whole year. So it's not. But the thing is, the incidence is low, but perinatal mortality, if we take the figures out of that, nearly 3% perinatal mortality is because of high drops. Because of high drops. So that way it causes some worry or some anxiety. And then we come to the causes. Most common we think of is Rh incompatibility. Then we think of thalassemia, beta thalassemia, major thalassemia, that could be responsible, or anti-RO or anti-LA antibodies. So that if any of these is responsible for high drops, it is called immune high drops. But this is not the only cause. There are non-immune causes as well. Non-immune causes as well. In that group, we can group those non-immune causes into 3. One is abnormalities, trisomy 13, 18, and 21, and congenital heart malformation, which can lead to CCF, congestive cardiac failure, or any other developmental anomaly, maybe in the liver, kidney of the baby. So abnormalities. Second group is infections. Second group infection is cytomegalovirus, toxoplasmosis, and parvovirus B19. Third group is idiopathic or miscellaneous. We don't know. And they are all equally responsible for high drops, which we see in general population. 30% could the possibility it is abnormality, either chromosomal or developmental. 30% possibility is it is some kind of infection, and 30% is idiopathic or unexplained. And then we come to what are the investigation, keeping these causes in view, we should do in a patient who, like today's patient who has developed eye drops. There's a long list of investigation. I will go about them in the list as priority. Most common thing which we think of is blood group ABO and RH. Then next is we do think of electrophoresis for thalassemia. Next is OGTT for diabetes. Then to find out the severity of antibodies, indirect Coombs test. And if all these is no help, then anti-RO and LA antibodies. Then we come to, after finishing with that, viral antibodies. Viral tests like TORCH. And very rarely it is, syphilis is not a common disease these days, and some metabolic disease in mother like 6-GPD. And last of all, karyotyping of the fetus and placental pathology, because chorioangioma can cause it, and the placenta, in a case of high drops, grows big and is of large size. It's histopathology. So I go with the tests again. Blood group, electrophoresis for thalassemia, indirect Coombs test, anti-RO and LA antibodies, viral profile like TORCH test, and if need be, karyotyping of the fetus and placental pathology. Next, if at all you are asked in the examination, practically we don't have any facility. I don't know any place where they're doing. Baby needs chordocentesis. Then, in case you get blood by doing chordocentesis, on the baby's blood, you'll do hemoglobin, blood group, direct Coombs test, bilirubin is protein levels, viral screen, and if facility is available, karyotyping. So these are the investigations which are possible. And now we'll discuss your patient, Dr. Hira. This is a patient who is Gravida 7, Para 3+3, LMP 2nd September, expected date 9th June. We are today in first week of March. So April, May, June, roughly 26 plus weeks pregnant. And on ultrasound, hydrops is diagnosed.
Yes.
How shall we manage this patient? You must have read it. Can you very briefly tell me how will you manage this patient?
Yes, sir. I will keep my patient admitted. I will complete my remaining investigation as her anemia workup has not been done up till now, and I will confirm the type of anemia, and I will do multidisciplinary team in the form of neonatologist, radiologist, anesthetist. I will involve a neonatologist and counsel my patient in liaison with him. I will counsel my patient as she has non-immune hydrops in which more than 98% perinatal mortality rate, and after correction of her anemia, we will have to terminate this pregnancy as she is at increased risk of placental abruption, scar dehiscence, and postpartum hemorrhage. And I will counsel her and take written informed consent of autopsy of the baby if she want the cause, if she want to know the cause of her problem. I will correct her anemia with 1 unit of Paxil, and after taking written consent and explaining the pros and cons and hazards of blood transfusion reaction. She is at increased risk of post PPH, and I will go for lower segment cesarean section. I will do elective lower segment cesarean section with 1 unit of blood in hand. After delivery, I will evaluate the baby from the pediatrician for any gross anomalies and autopsy. I will do her vitals record, intra-operate IOP record half hourly for first 4 hours post-partumly, then 6 hourly for next 24 hours. I will break her NPO early after bowel sounds audible. I will repeat her hemoglobin after 48 hours.
Just a minute. Just now you told us that there's a 98% chance that baby will not survive.
Yes, sir.
So counseling means you're terminating the pregnancy, particularly at 26, 27 weeks, you're taking the baby out. In Pakistan, we still believe less than 28 weeks, baby is not viable. And particularly with this anomaly, hydrops, with 98% you said mortality rate, is very, very unlikely. So we will not go into the discussion if the baby survives incubator and NPO and everything you said. But we will focus on to this. The first, I agree with you. Like you have to make it with greater clarity that one, at this stage, we do not know the cause. And second, as I mentioned earlier, that in this patient, we'll do repeated Doppler. That is, study whether the baby is affected or how severely the baby is affected. And that we can find out by, you have not used this term because you didn't read this like this. We'll do repeatedly MCA, middle cerebral artery Doppler test, and find out. That gives you the indication how severely the baby is anemic. Baby is anemic. And if at all you want to continue the pregnancy, the mother, after counseling, mother says, don't terminate now, let's wait. If there's 2% chance, I'll take. Then you have to dilate on that. That we'll do repeatedly. Every 2 weeks or every week, we'll do Doppler studies and to find out how severely the baby is affected. And if particularly ultrasound, if the baby shows Buddha position, then it means very unlikely that hydrops is so severe, very unlikely to survive. This is one part. If at all, we have to follow her up. Second, if the patient agrees for termination, you have to discuss at this 26, 27 weeks, how will you do cesarean section? Because lower segment is not well formed. You have to highlight that.
Sir, उसकी fundal height 36 weeks थी.
Oh, that doesn't matter. That 36 weeks, if the fundal height is there, is still, but in terms of gestation, you have to consider that maybe just stretching of the upper segment, not of the lower segment. So to tell the examiner that there are difficulties if you terminate pregnancy by hysterectomy or cesarean section at 27, 28 weeks, and previous cesarean section as well. So highlight those that if the patient agrees, the termination has to be surgical by laparotomy, and that during surgery, I make sure there are no lesions, bladder is not adherent to the lower segment, and if lower segment is not well formed, then I will have to do the hysterectomy by upper segment, whether it will be transverse incision, vertical incision, all that. These are the areas which the examiner would like to hear or listen from you. That because you are going into, I'll deliver the baby at 27 weeks, and possibly the baby will survive NPO and things like that, which perhaps is not going to happen at all. Not, and you did say that at the delivery of the baby, I'll try to find out the cause. As I mentioned earlier, chordocentesis, blood, all those tests can be done after delivery of the baby, including karyotyping. And they will, including viral screen, they will tell you whether the cause of that hydrops, obviously not RH, which group 3 causes. One is malformation, chromosomal anomalies, and 2 infections, and 3 idiopathic where you don't find a cause. So you say highlight that I'll try to find out the cause after delivery of the baby by doing tests like karyotyping, viral screen, and things like that. And only rarely the part which you should be prepared that if the baby survives and the cord blood shows the baby is severely affected, then what will you do? If at all baby survives, here the baby needs exchange transfusion. Here, if at all the baby survives, baby needs exchange transfusion as early as possible. Then you will be asked exchange transfusion, how do we do it? And you have to emphasize through umbilical cord and umbilical vein, and it is always in kind of, have you ever seen exchange transfusion? If you haven't, remember, first, it's always in the negative balance. First, you withdraw blood, 10 cc of the blood, and then you inject slowly. And again, withdraw blood, then again 10 cc. So there's no overloading of the heart. And generally, 80 milliliter to 100 milliliter is exchange transfusion. And even after that, the baby will need supervision and for his anemia, the things which you were going to talk about, intensive care, incubator care, and things like that. So,
Sir,
G, I finished with this eye drops. Anything you would like to ask?
सर ये एक्सपेंसिव टेस्ट कैरियोटाइपिंग और इनकी बात करनी है अगर पेशेंट इनकम 10,000 पर मंथ है.
जी कही है ना कि the government should sponsor ये Allied Hospital is a teaching hospital. It is run by the government. Their government claims at least that the medicines are free, tests are free, so the cost should be borne by the hospital, I think. And you add this. These are expensive tests, but they can be taken care by insurance company or the government. But technically, you should be mentioning all those tests.
और सर इसकी
सर एक जीनोटाइप
जी एक वक्त में एक बोल जी बोलिए.
सर जीनोटाइप का पूछ रही थी मैं. जीनोटाइप ऑफ हस्बैंड हर जगह अवेलेबल है?
जी क्यों नहीं, अच्छे अस्पतालों में अवेलेबल है. ऐसी जीनोटाइपिंग इज नॉट डिफिकल्ट टेस्ट.
ओके सर.
But that is important because if the husband is homozygous, capital D, then it means all the babies are, you can predict all the babies are going to be Rh positive. If husband is heterozygous, capital D and small d, then you can reassure the patient that there's 50% chance baby will be positive, 50% chance the baby will be negative. So if the baby is going to be negative, irrespective of the fact mother has high titer of antibodies, baby will not be affected. Baby will be safe. जी
सर इसमें मदर के थायराइड प्रोफाइल करा सकते हैं?
जी करवा लीजिए. I don't know directly metabolic effect. Yes, करवा लीजिए. Yes, do that.
और सर सिफिलिस VDRL
नहीं, if the TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, and T3, T4 are normal, then the patient doesn't need treatment of thyroid. Treatment तो इधर ही है, यही है.
सर सिफिलिस के लिए VDRL करा सकते हैं इस पेशेंट की?
जी सिफिलिस मैंने कहा ना, बहुत ही अनकॉमन. These days, luckily, syphilis is very uncommon disease or rare disease. But the name of syphilis is written in the list of causes of eye drops.
और सर पारो वायरस के लिए मदर की सीरोलॉजी?
हाँ वो मैंने तो कहा ना, करवाइए.
ठीक है सर, थैंक यू.
Anybody else?
सर एमनियोसेंटेसिस का जिक्र करना
सर. Good. Hello. Invasive investigations during early pregnancy, जिसमें amniocentesis भी है. तो वो आजकल के ज़माने में नॉन इन्वेसिव प्रीनेटल टेस्टिंग जो है NIPT, उसका ब्रांड नेम है हार्मोनी टेस्ट. That is available, which can be done at 8 to 10 weeks, which will tell you all the anomalies of the fetus and blood group of the fetus and even sex of the fetus. So in such cases, I think if the patient can afford, this test is not mandatory, but it is complementary in the sense that you can, the patient can afford, you do NIPT test. It will tell you right in the beginning the blood group of the baby and any anomalies. So if they are normal, you can reassure the mother, even if she has got Rh negative and antibodies, that baby is blood group shows that baby may be affected or may not be affected. You know right from the beginning. So instead of amniocentesis, which is invasive test, do NIPT test, and that is useful. NIPT, somebody has written all capitals, NIPT, non-invasive prenatal testing.
Sir, इसमें
it is expensive because it's not done here. It is done in Dubai or London, so it costs about 50 to 60,000 rupees.
सर इसमें इलेक्ट्रोफोरेसिस कराएंगे? इसका हीमोग्लोबिन 8.6।
हाँ वही ना मैंने कहा, इलेक्ट्रोफोरेसिस फॉर डायग्नोसिस ऑफ थैलेसीमिया और एनी अदर anomalies of the blood.
ठीक है सर।
और सर इसको हमने बस डिलीवरी कराना है, हम इन यूट्रो ट्रांसफ्यूजन करके आगे नहीं ले जा सकते प्रेगनेंसी को?
Is patient
और हम कॉर्डो
generally hydrops, if the stage of hydrops reaches, then the baby is suffering from congestive cardiac failure, because the cycle is that there's such severe anemia. Baby has to pump blood in larger volume, dilute the blood, and more quickly. So baby's heart goes into congestive cardiac failure. So baby inside the uterus dies because of this CCF. So surely, as you have asked, if we had diagnosed this at a very early stage, then chordocentesis would have been a great help in saving the patient from severe anemia by the intrauterine transfusion, and maybe the baby would have survived. But if you see a patient at that late, where already hydrops has developed, then chances of baby survival are very poor. As the figure was quoted, I didn't know this figure of 98%, but mortality rate is very, very high. Anything else?
Sir, you have told us that a few tests like chromosomal testing and karyotyping and torch infection, viral serology, they should be done after delivery of the baby.
After
But sir,
delivery, and if the blood is available by chordocentesis during pregnancy, if not, then after delivery.
Sir, can we give her options of autopsy of the baby?
Autopsy, possibly, because one of the causes of hydrops is anomalies of the development or abnormalities of the chromosome, trisomy, and things like that. So autopsy can be of help to find out any anomaly related to liver, kidney, or intestines, which can be in a very small number cause of hydrops. Yes, autopsy. I imagine, talking about autopsy, any death, immediately after birth, neonatal death, or any, should normally be examined postpartum to find the cause. So autopsy is recommended in all cases, but here especially, if at all you think the abnormality was in the heart or liver or any other organ, or chromosomal anomaly leading to this, so it will be a help. Yes.
but sir, my
possible
question left
to
in between. My question
Eh,
was, sir, if we will get done with these tests like viral serology and chromosomal testing antenatally, then they will help us in the decision of terminating the pregnancy earlier. So why don't we get done with these tests
But
antenatally?
here is a patient who does not give past, she is RH positive, does not give any history of hydrops in the past. I agree. Now you come to, if this patient has hydrops now, what are the risks in the next pregnancy? The patient will automatically ask you this question. And the first question is, one hydrop doesn't necessarily mean, even if you don't take any precautionary investigations or treatment, the risk of second hydrops is very, very small. Very, very small. So you can reassure your patient in that way that they're bound to ask you this question. What is the risk next time? Is it going to happen again? And so you can reassure her that even without doing all those investigations which you have asked, that why not do them viral screening and karyotyping and all that? Would that be of help? I've told you that the incidence is so small, but doing these investigations will not do any harm because they are all non-invasive investigations. Non-invasive. So any non-invasive investigation is welcome. But when it comes to invasive investigations in the examination, particularly, you have to justify the reason for doing it. Is 5 to 10. If anybody wishes to ask anything, you're welcome. Otherwise,
she is at 36 centimeter fundal height. तो सर हम 2 weeks और किधर तक इसको लेकर जाएंगे?
इसको तो लेके जाने की बात ही नहीं हो रही जी. ये तो चूंकि इसका prognosis for survival of the baby is almost negligible. ये तो टॉप है, टर्मिनेशन ऑफ प्रेगनेंसी, इसलिए उसको लेके जाने की बात नहीं है, उसको तो टर्मिनेट करना है.
सर उसकी सिर्फ वन अलाइव इशू है, प्रेगनेंसी विद एडवर्स आउटकम, देन हिस्टेरोटमी अफेक्ट हर फर्दर ऑब्स्टेट्रिक्स.
लेकिन वो आपकी बात बिल्कुल ठीक है कि ये 6 ग्रेविडा क्या है, 3+3, तो इसमें एक अलाइव बेबी, which is quite common history you will see in antenatal clinic in your teaching hospital. And 7th pregnancy, but only one living baby. I agree with you. It's a kind of history which needs sympathy and all attempts to save this baby. But you will add to the cost and not save the baby. So in this case, I'll agree with Faisalabad people that it should be terminated.
Okay.
Okay then. Thank you very much. Pleasure
Thank you, sir.
to you. Then see you next Saturday. Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you.
हेलो अस्सलाम वालेकुम. सर मुझे एक क्वेश्चन करना था. सर हाइड्रोकेफेलस के बारे में बता दें, इट्स मोड ऑफ डिलीवरी एंड कैसे कराना होता है. समटाइम्स इट्स सिजेरियन सेक्शन, कहते हैं कि अगर इफ पेशेंट विशेस टू सेव बेबी एट एनी कॉस्ट, एंड समटाइम्स वी हैव टू ड्रेन द वाटर आउट ऑफ द क्रेनियल कैविटी. ये थोड़ा क्लियर करते हैं. कौन सा?
मैं क्योंकि टाइम थोड़े में जवाब देना, I'll be very brief. If you feel that cortical thickness is such in hydrocephalus that baby will survive, then it has to be delivered by cesarean section. And arrangement in the same breath, same sentence, arrangements for shunt procedure. If the cortical thickness is thin, baby is that's affected, baby IQ and other faculties will be poor, then it has to be delivered vaginally after draining of the fluid or decompression of that. Thank you.